Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be looking at an article on digital nomads and how they are not receiving a warm welcome in Mexico City. And so just to start off with, I am a digital nomad, or I believe I'd be considered a digital nomad, where I used to be within the United States. I was born in the United States. I have United States citizenship, and I moved to the Philippines, and now I'm working online full-time, doing content creation, courses, consulting, coaching, all of those. I call that the 4 C's. And so going abroad when you were a citizen, you are a citizen of the United States, would make you a digital nomad. So let's see what NBC Los Angeles has to say about these digital nomads. So Mexico City is home to more than 300 plus neighborhoods, but 3 to 4 are incredibly popular with foreigners and digital nomads. So much so that rents and prices have gone up for locals and some are not too happy. Okay, so what they're saying here is that people are being forced out of certain neighborhoods because of foreigners, and obviously you would not want that in your country. Jacob Wong read of a sign posted in Mexico City's Roma neighborhood last year. There's a sign that went viral. New to the city, working remotely, you're an effing plague. Locals effing hate you. Leave. Since then, some locals have also criticized hearing more English being spoken in those trendy neighborhoods. Okay, so this is something I strongly agree with, and I don't understand why other people do not agree with this, which is that if you move to a country, you have to understand the national language of that country. And ideally, you would communicate in that national language in all public areas. If you want to, in your own home, to communicate in another language, fine. But it makes no sense to me that people would be communicating in a language other than English in the United States. And I understand that English is not technically the national language of the United States, but you should be in public spaces communicating in English, and it should be within the books considered to be the national language. And I say this as someone of Italian, Greek, and Jewish origins, my ethnicity. And so my ancestors did speak other languages, and when they moved to America, they had to learn English. And so if you are a person of moving to another country, you have to learn that language. That's one of the reasons I moved to the Philippines, was because they speak English here. If I moved to, say, like a Thailand or a Japan, where English is not a national language, I would have to learn that language. And so that's something you have to consider. And that's a reason that people are frustrated in America with people speaking Spanish, because you need to have a language in common that you can communicate with. And it is rude to speak in another language in front of other people who do not speak that language. And so English being spoken in America, that's not a racist thing to say. That's not something that should be racist. It should be something that makes complete sense to anyone with any critical thinking faculty, which is that you have to have a common language to communicate with people. And that goes back to something else I'd love to talk about, which is having unifying factors in common, where people have to have things in common, whether it's race, ethnicity, religion, common values, a sports team in common, anything in common. You have to have things in common with people, and language is one of those things in common. I mean, let's say for a second that you are not closely related to a person, you don't have the same religion, you don't have the same fundamental values, you don't speak the same language, you don't have the same favorite sports team, et cetera, you really don't have anything in common with that person at that point. And so there's no reason to form a nation with that person. You just don't have any unifying factors in common. And so that's kind of the situation that Western nations are finding themselves in, where they have a ton of people within their nations and they don't have anything in common. So very concerning. And you're seeing that even when Americans are fleeing to other countries, they're not learning that lesson that you have to integrate within this society. Since then, some locals have also criticized hearing more English. Okay, we talked about that. It's crazy going to places like Roma and Condesa and hearing English everywhere, said Fernando Bustos Grozope on his TikTok channel. Okay, so it's still Mexico City. There might be a few vegan restaurants here and there, said John Roberts, an American from Louisiana living in Condesa, who says it's Mexicans benefiting from the uptick in prices. Who is the one raising the prices? The owners themselves, so maybe the anger should be pointed to them. I could see the good and bad things about it. That Alexis Barangan, who runs One Way Mexico Trips, a tourism company that caters to a lot of Americans. He benefits from the tourism, but as a native of the city, he definitely sees the downside of digital nomads who come to live and work. It is a gentrification. Yeah, and you have to make sure that the laws of the land actually benefit the people so that they're not getting screwed over by all of these digital nomads, all of these people coming into the nation. That's something that America just does not do well, where other countries, if a ton of foreigners are coming in, you make sure that they can only own a certain amount of land. They can't own the majority of various companies. China does this, trying to make sure that foreigners cannot outcompete the citizens of their nation when it comes to things like land. It's heavily in favor of citizens of the nation, whereas in America, you can have a ton of land being owned by foreigners. You can have a ton of land being owned by extremely rich people, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's up to the nation state. And again, this is one of the reasons you have a nation state to begin with. It's up to the nation state to make sure that your own people aren't pushed out of your own neighborhoods. That makes a whole lot of sense, or at least it should. But for some reason, it's become taboo to talk about things like that. Okay, let's see what else we have. About 1.6 million Americans currently live in Mexico, according to the State Department. The Mexican government allows Americans to stay for up to 6 months if they don't have a visa. Wow, that's a long time. Okay. I believe it's only 30 days. 60 days can be extended for Philippines. Mexicans believe Americans are taking advantage of low prices in Mexico during a time of inflation and moving into places with cheaper rent. Okay, that makes sense. I completely get it. I lived in a neighborhood in LA that was gentrified, said Charles Julius, who lived in Los Angeles West Adams neighborhood as it gentrified over the last decade. He has moved to Mexico City to work on research. I can understand people who might have a less positive view of it, but I hope to be more of a contributor versus someone who is here to only have fun. A lot of Mexicans and foreigners are coming to this place to live. For House Mexico owner, said Ediata Nerjeco, for House Mexico owner, a real estate company that specializes in finding foreign homes. She says that 70% of her business comes from clients outside of Mexico who want to live in the country's capital city. While the anger is expressed by some locals, most welcome foreigners with open arms. I don't think it is a problem, said Claudia Romero. I see more Americans, Chinese, and Koreans, and I think it adds to our culture. Mexico has a lot to offer for you, said Barragan, who hopes more visitors will dive into Mexico's culture and language more as they visit or live in North America's largest city. Okay, so this is really, really interesting, I would say. You're seeing that Americans are fleeing America given this situation. And again, as someone who has also essentially fled America, I can completely understand the mindset there. And people have been asking me in the comment section, well, why'd you leave? And I do think that America is collapsing to a large extent. And people see this slow decline in America, and they think it's always going to be a slow decline. But the thing is, you have to realize is things go linearly for a while, and then they can collapse pretty much overnight. That's why you see things like bank runs being the cause of depressions, recessions, things like that. People take all of their money out of the system at once, and there's not enough liquidity in the system to actually handle that. And that's what I'm seeing in regards to the US dollar, the petrodollar, in terms of United States influence is it's going down somewhat linearly. It might be going down a little bit faster now given the Judeo-Islamic War of 2023, but it's going down pretty linearly. But that could collapse pretty much overnight. I mean, right now, something I've been very concerned about is the potential for various countries to declare war on Israel, which if that happens, if say a dozen Islamic countries declare war on Israel, that's going to have very, very long-lasting impacts. And you're already seeing some talks about that where Turkey's president is saying that they will intervene if the conflict continues. And you're seeing people in Yemen talking about forming brigades to go to Palestine if the Palestinians ask for help, various things like that. And you should be very concerned that, yes, things are slowly declining for America, but that decline could just fall off a cliff at any point. And I recognize that. And so that's why I left America. And I would strongly encourage you, if you are in America and if you have the option to move abroad and take your loved ones abroad, I would strongly encourage you to do so. If you want to see any specific videos about how I went about it, things like that, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you for tuning in to another video on our channel on how digital nomads are not receiving a particularly warm welcome. And this is from NBC Los Angeles. So please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed our reading and commentary of this article, please subscribe to our channel for more content. I would also encourage you to subscribe to our channel on Rumble, because I'm pivoting more and more towards Rumble because I'm being suppressed in the YouTube algorithm. And please leave us a comment in the comment box. I read them both on Rumble and on YouTube. I get notifications directly to my phone, so I get them as soon as possible. And thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.